Who are these doggies?
This is Samwise, he's my pup. And then this is Daisy, who's my girlfriend's Amber's dog. And they're very cute.
Look at the little doggies.
I came to Eastman. I sought out community to align my lifestyle with my values. Coming here was an attempt to, again, practice right livelihood. And it's also probably the biggest way I've grown. I don't know if this is quite spiritually, but perhaps, but just more emotionally, is I think I've cultivated a lot more compassion and understanding. My name is Boone. I've been living here at Eastman Community for just about the past 5 years. I grew up in the suburbs of New Jersey. Born to a middle-class, upper-middle-class family. I was the first of 4 children. Had a pretty idyllic childhood up until the age of 10 when my parents divorced. That was rather traumatic to me and was probably the seed of what led me here. Kind of having your world turned upside down causes you to, question things a little bit. And so yeah, that was my one main trauma, was my parents' divorce. I happened to have done well on the PSAT and was a National Merit Scholar. A bunch of universities offered me full rides because of that. I chose to go to UT Dallas in Texas, as they had a really good computer science program, which is what I thought I wanted to do at the time. And upon getting there, I didn't go to some of my classes because I just didn't care about school. It just didn't hold my interest. And so I lost my scholarship after 2 years, and just basically knew I didn't know what I wanted to do. And the script, for whatever reason, that I was handed, go to college, get a good job, find a wife, get a house, kids, all that, the script just didn't resonate with me. And so I waited tables for a few years and was just trying to make sense of the world around me and my place in it and decide what was worthwhile to do. I went to a big turning point was 2007. I had just turned 21. I went to my first music festival, which was Bonnaroo in Tennessee, and had a mystical experience. And that really caused me to question everything. And my life took a right turn there, and I started researching philosophy. Started with Western philosophy. Didn't quite find what I was looking for, turned to Eastern philosophy, and that resonated a lot. And another big result of my mystical experience was just a strong desire for communal living. And I was interested in intentional communities pretty much right away. I had found Twin Oaks, and I was planning on moving there.
How did you find Twin Oaks?
Just through Google. Yeah, started doing internet research on. I started Googling the word commune, and that just was a trail from there. Found IC.org, found the FEC. Didn't find Eastland. And was, but this was my, moving to community was a long-term plan, or a long-time plan. Before doing so, I was out of work briefly and answered a Craigslist ad to become a ballroom dance instructor. And that turned into a 5-year career at the Arthur Murray Dance Studios, where I learned a lot. They taught me to dance, and then a lot of interpersonal skills as well. And I grew a lot as a person, and I felt it was worthwhile work, changing people's lives through dancing. And so while I was there, I was happy to postpone my plans for community, but I was not financially successful at the first one, and then ran into just like personal conflicts with the owners of the second, and I took that as a sign that a dance career was not for me, and turned my eyes back to community. And my sister was living here in Missouri, and she was the one who's like, we have one of those here, and that ended up being Eastwinds. And I came here for my visitor period in August of 2015. I guess I should say that my motivation for seeking out community was I had come to recognize what I consider are deeply fundamental problems with the way we humans are collectively living on this planet. For shorthand, you can just call it capitalism. But essentially competition, scarcity of resources, many people going without their basic human needs being met, and then increasing exploitation of our environment, leading to environmental degradation and collapse. I wasn't born wealthy or powerful, and so I can only control that which is in my sphere of influence, which is pretty much just myself. And I came to recognize that just participating in a first world lifestyle, a high energy consumption lifestyle, where you're driving a car as a matter of course, and your food's coming from 3,000 miles away, and your clothes are made in sweatshops on the other side of the planet, that just a first world modern American lifestyle is inherently and pretty much unavoidably, I don't know, at the time I used the word immoral, which now strikes me as a little harsh perhaps, but I still, can't disagree with it. And so I was seeking to just no longer be a part of the problem. And so moving to community was a way to reduce my ecological footprint. Not that Eastwind is the answer. We're still dependent on capitalism, and we still have trucks coming up and down the road, and we run a factory, but I will say it's a lot better, in my opinion, than your standard first world lifestyle. And so that was my motivation for seeking out community, to as much as possible no longer be a part of the problem while still having a decent quality of life. Well, at the time, we had a website that was informative, and so coming here, it was just about as I expected. And I was very, very pleased to have found Eastwind, and really liked what was going on here. My first year, so there's a year-long provisional membership, and in that time, I decided just to kind of just sit back and contribute where I could, but just kind of learn how things went here and learn the ways of community. One of the things that made me interested in trying out intentional community, and it proved true, was that I figure you can learn a lot of skills, and that has been very true for me. One of the first things I really picked up was cheese making, and I'm now a fairly accomplished cheesemaker. Make a pretty mean Parmesan, and my mozzarella is much appreciated around here. And there was two large skill sets that I was hoping to learn when coming here. One was to work on cars and understand engines and just working on cars in general. And then the other was construction. And then it never worked out for me to work in the auto shop. Just the people who were there were just never quite saw eye to eye with. But I was very lucky to start working with a wonderful woman named Becky, who is our building maintenance manager. And yeah, she taught me construction skills, and so I've learned quite a bit. We've built buildings from the ground up. We've repaired old buildings, built new decks, and so I've gathered a pretty solid skill set when it comes to construction, between electricity work and plumbing and pouring cement and stick framing. Built a roof, and yeah, just in general, like, I'm very confident. Like, if I can think of something, I can build it, and that's very much just from being here. And I've actually landed some job opportunities in Babylon because of that skill set. So it's financially paid off as well.
You had essentially zero handyman skills coming in?
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, I could work a screwdriver and, like, I could change a tire, but yeah, I was not a handyman. If you look into Eastern philosophy, there's different kinds of saints. And here I interpret saint to just be like enlightened person. And you have the sage on the mountaintop who's kind of removed himself from the world. But then you also have a tradition of what are called householder saints. And they are enlightened people who still live in the world. They raise a family, they hold a house, that kind of thing. And that kind of spirituality, a lived, grounded spirituality, has always appealed to me. And I came to Eastwind. I sought out community to align my lifestyle with my values. And so moving here was an attempt to practice right livelihood, which I think is a very key component to spirituality, and unfortunately can often be missed in many spiritual circles. There's a lot of spiritual bypassing and a lot of, chanting and yoga classes and all this stuff, but then, the material basis of your lifestyle is inflicting a ton of suffering on other humans and on the world. And so my coming here was an attempt to, again, practice right livelihood. And it's also probably the biggest way I've grown. I don't know if this is quite spiritually, but perhaps, but just more emotionally, is I think I've cultivated a lot more compassion and understanding. And I still, I struggle with this, but when I came here 5 years ago, I was far more quick to judge. And that's been one of my struggles in this world, is to not to judge others and not to judge myself. And living here has been a very valuable lesson in compassion and understanding, and not judging others. And and when you live in Babylon, if someone crosses a boundary or is an asshole to you, you can just cut them out of your life. You can be like, hey, that's not cool, I don't accept that, and then you don't deal with them anymore. But when you live this closely with other people, you still see them, you still have to interact with them, and so you're forced to figure out ways to coexist with people that you perhaps have some significant disagreement with, or distaste for. And just having more grace for other people is probably the biggest spiritual lesson that I've gained in my time here. A big reality about dating at Eastwind is just that there's a limited dating pool. There's only, depending on the time, there's about 70 of us here, and then there's an age range, and then so when you're in the dating age, let's say 20 to 45 or whatever, depending on who you are, there can be a scarcity of potential dating partners, and so that's a big part of the reality. And then for me personally, one of the big things I was lacking for a good portion of my membership here was a romantic partner. For probably about, let's say, 3 out of the 5 years I've been here, I was single, and that was a frustration. But overall, it was worth dealing with to continue to live here. And then, I don't know whether it's through working on myself or just time or whatever, but about more than a year ago, I've been dating, met a girl, and she's actually moved here to be with me, and so it's been much better. And I don't know, people in general, I would say I haven't seen too many relationships here last all that long. Shortly after becoming a full member, I ran for the social committee chair position, which the social committee is comprised of 5 people, and it's tasked with conflict mediation and then also accountability. And for the year that I had been here, and as far as I understand, for several years prior, it had been an empty position, and was not, it was empty often. And when it was occupied, not much was done with it. I was a relatively new member, just barely a full member, and didn't know what community's expectations around that job was. And I tried to be very upfront and transparent about it. I proposed to have some discussion meetings just to talk about the role and ask what people wanted to see from it, and then what I considered my job to be. Throughout, so a membership lasts a year long. Throughout my tenure, I dealt with a decent number of conflicts in community, and discovered that people basically weren't used to being held accountable, and I was probably harsh in my doing so. And so, I don't know, I've learned to be much more gentle in my communication as a result of living here, and especially as of holding that position. But essentially I felt I garnered a good amount of resentment from community for holding people accountable, which is what I understood the job to be. It's a high-stress job, and it's pretty thankless. People don't appreciate it oftentimes. I mean, a few people do, but other people just see you as the cop, and no one likes cops. I have many favorite things. Very high up on the list is our food, for multiple reasons. Probably the biggest is that, as you can see behind me, we have large gardens, and we grow I would say, significant part of our own food. Nowhere close to actually meeting all of our dietary needs, but we raise pretty much all of our red meat, and we usually are able to supply ourselves with eggs, and we get lots of fresh vegetables, and we have a very wonderful dairy program that meets just about all of our milk and cheese needs. And so the fact that a sizable portion of my diet is coming from food that I can trust, that is raised and created with good practices, and that is local and is not coming from California or whatever. So just the quality of food and the quality of the ingredients here is just about unmatched. I say we eat better than just about anybody. And then not only is that the case, but then we have wonderful cooks here. And so dinner is prepared for me every night at 6 p.m. And I'm a lazy cook. I can throw stuff together, but I try not to cook if I don't have to. And the fact that I have home-cooked meals every night that I don't have to do anything for is a huge... I love it. Our food, the production, and the presentation of the serving of is a huge plus here. As I've already gone over, just the fact that by living here, our ecological footprint is greatly reduced. That's a big thing I love about living here. There's 9 or 10 cars between 70 people. We ride share a lot. We have 4 shopping trips a week, so that, and there's not 70 people going shopping, there's 4. And so, and most people don't get in a car very often, so, our electricity consumption is much lower than the national average. We heat a lot of our common spaces and some of our, tiny houses from sustainable forestry. And so, just again, this is not the answer, we don't have it all figured out, but we are closer to right livelihood than most. And so I admire that very much. Our land is beautiful. We have about 1,000 acres of rolling hills in the Ozarks. We have a creek on our property, so you can go canoeing and kayaking and swimming, fishing. We have hiking, and you can go deer hunting, and just living in the woods. So, we have a little campus, but it's set amongst the woods, and so you're just living here, I'm much closer to nature than I've ever been. I'm far more aware of seasonality. I can identify more plants and animals than I've ever been able to in my life. I've been paying attention and this plant flowers in the spring and this plant flowers in the fall, and just noticing, just the web of life that everything else depends on just by virtue of being closer to it. I very, very much appreciate the amount of autonomy here. Every member chooses their own work. We do agree to work 35 hours a week for the community, but how you do so is almost exclusively up to you. And so choosing my own work, choosing when and where and how I work is something I very much appreciate. There's no bosses, no one telling you what to do. And so that's a huge plus in my book. Those are probably the biggest things. And then and I guess just living cooperatively, even just, we're all pretty much on the same team, and that's nice. Doing some wildlife watching right now.
I'm double timing it right now.
Things that's been a standing frustration with me here is simply that we as a community don't have a common vision for the future. We can't agree on what goals are worthy of working towards, and different members have different desires, and as such, there is movement, but it's kind of scattered, kind of like 2 steps forward, 1 step back kind of thing. And I find that frustrating. And then kind of like the negative side of people having a lot of autonomy is it's not uncommon just to see a lack of care for others, inconsiderateness. People, there's petty theft here. People will steal beer out of the walk-in from each other. People's communication styles and conflict resolution styles I find difficult. It's not uncommon for people to scream at each other here, and like petty power plays. And so, yeah, I guess, it would be nice if we could agree just to be nicer to each other and, find a gentler way to resolve conflict, interpersonal conflict. But yeah, and then there's, just like petty politics, I guess, is the frustration. Well, I very much staunchly support this lifestyle. I'm so glad I've lived here, and I don't think I could ever go back to living a traditional mainstream lifestyle. I don't know if you can hear Sumner or not, but he asked, he mentioned that I'm considering moving on from here, and that's true, but with the goal, I'm doing so with the goal of starting another place very much along these lines. I believe cooperation is key, and especially living a much more land-based, ecologically sustainable lifestyle is just about the only way forward for us as a species, collectively and individually. And so my commitment to that is unswavering. I guess, given the frustrations I was just talking about, I didn't see Eastwind being what I needed it to be, and so I'm therefore looking to create what I'm looking for. But yeah, I'm very much a firm believer in this lifestyle. I guess, just and like any community worth its salt will be very upfront about this, but there is no such place as utopia. All communities will have their shadow side and their negatives. So don't come in expecting this place to be perfect, or whatever community you go to, it's not going to be perfect. There will be issues there. And so just be aware of that. And it's really about what issues are you looking for. There's issues in Babylon, there's issues here. And so it's trading one set of issues for the other. And if you're interested in this lifestyle, then I encourage you to at least experience it and see, then get a firsthand account of which set of issues you prefer. I personally will take the problems here over the problems of Babylon. And then as far as Eastwind, while I was the social committee chair, I would do a little social Oreo, and something I told all incoming members was it's pretty easy to have a very successful membership here. It's really only about two things, and first is contribute, so work in some meaningful way, and find some way to contribute to community. And then the second is don't be a dick. And so, just, take ownership for your mistakes, and, don't, be accountable for your own actions. And if you mess up, just, say, oh, I messed up, and, try not to do it again. And, communicate courteously and try to be considerate of others. Depending on people's history, if you've never lived in a communal setting, it just takes greater awareness here, because your actions aren't just impacting you, they're impacting 69 other people. And so, like, if you're living in an apartment and you don't do the dishes, the only person that has to deal with the dirty dishes is you. So that's like on you, and you can deal with the consequences of your own actions. No one else is affected by it. But here, if you blow off one of your dishes shifts, it messes up the whole flow of the kitchen. People don't have pots to cook with, or they don't have plates to eat on, and you're impacting a lot of other people. And so, just have that awareness that when you live in a communal setting, your actions have a much larger ripple close to home. And yeah, that's probably what I would say. Cut that out. That can't make the cut.
Gonna buy me second flower,